I believe we have time for about one more audience question. And if no one has one, I have one for both of our speakers. And it relates to really Thich Nhat Hanh's, what I feel is the blazing energy of his presence that has been left behind, which is this incredible movement of engagement by Buddhism. There's different words for what I think is essentially the same act of taking the Buddhist practice and using it in the world as a method for not only individual liberation, but societal, and being able to release ourselves from structures that are causing untold amounts of suffering in the world. And so I would like to know from each of our speakers how your understanding of engaged Buddhism has been influenced and developed through your awareness and reading or practice in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, as also a way for our audience to learn more about perhaps even the Vajrayana perspective on engaged Buddhism. So thank you.
Well, I want to yield to Geshe to begin with that one, please, Geshe. It was so beautiful and profound the way you located mindfulness within the actual vessel and practice of Buddhism. That's its most rich form. Please, you begin with this answer.
Okay, so basically, engaged Buddhism, this is extremely important, and we see that broadly speaking, for all the viewers, it's very important for us to know what is the real Buddhism. Real Buddhism, we see that there are two traditions. One is the Theravada Buddhism and the Mahayana Buddhism. And so basically the basic principle, while the foundation is the same, but depending on what you aspire, those that you find in the Theravada tradition, the goal is to achieve personal liberation. And by no means this is to demean somebody, but this is a fact. And when I was in Thailand 5 years ago, I just indicated this to one of the Thai great masters. And then his student very clearly told me that we don't aspire to become Buddhas, we only aspire to become Arahant, means personal, we see personal liberation. And then whereas those who aspire, let's not forget, okay, first let me just delineate the basic, the concept. Whereas in Mahayana, ideally speaking, it's to think of the achieving full enlightenment, Buddhahood, for the benefit of all the beings. So there, then the emphasis on the engaged Buddhism into action, in action, that becomes very pertinent. So with this in mind, having said this, we have to keep in mind that within the Theravada, the masters, there are some who are really, really Buddhist articles. I know some of my, the friends who are abbots of Theravada tradition, and yet what they are doing is just on a large scale benefit to the community. This is amazing, great examples. Okay, so now the point is that engaged Buddhism, say, in whatever way we can be of some help to other beings. First thing is to keep in mind that fix yourself. We have to fix ourselves and then see how you can engage to benefit others. If you don't fix yourself, say the Bodhisattva Arimattreya, what he indicated is that Simge Panishi Dushi Yanabazo, which means the bodhicitta, the basic principle of the Mahayana practice, is to wishing to achieve full enlightenment to benefit all the beings. So this is how he categorized what the bodhicitta is. With this in mind, first you have to somehow you need to see what is wrong within you. Why you cannot do things the way the Bodhisattva did. Why you cannot do things the way His Holiness the Dalai Lama is doing. Why we cannot do things the way the most venerable Thich Nhat Hanh is doing. So there we see that there are two demons inside us. We have to identify that. One is the cognitive, the error within us, which views things as so objectified and so solidified. In other words, self-grasping ignorance. And the other, which is self-centered attitude, which always thinks about the self, obsessed with the self. These are the two demons which stop us from engaging, from, say, making the Buddhism engaged with the world. So the way Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh he did, the way he's going to do now. So why we can't do that is because of these two things. We have to fix the things to the best you can, and then meanwhile, see how much you can engage with him as well. We don't even see that these two demons are within us. Then in the facade of engaging to help the world, or being what you call as engaged Buddhism, there's every danger that you seek your own personal fame, personal gain. I did this, we did this, and so forth. This is very, very poisonous. We should be very careful. And particularly people who engage, who are actively into the engaged Buddhism, for them, the first thing that they should not forget, they should always remember, be mindful, is that I should not be swayed by my personal fame. That is so important. That the two demons are within me. Whatever I do, it should be to help others. First, help myself to remove my two demons. That is so important. Without this, people may be carried away by this engaged Buddhism, and actually they are fighting amongst themselves. We did it. No, you did not do it. We did it. So this is where we can go wrong. But overall speaking, I have a deep, deep, deep respect to anybody who in action takes or be a great part of engaged Buddhism, where they fix the two demons inside, they remove the two demons, or completely or partially. At least they should see that these are demons. These two are not to be encouraged. So with this in mind, then they go out, engaged, and let this Buddhism be engaged with other beings in service of humanity. Thank you.
That's really very profound and beautiful what Geshe is sharing. He's saying we have to engage with the Buddhism practice that we have first inside of our own heart minds. And to really check up, you said the two demons, I'll say the 8 worldly concerns, is the kind of the 2 columns of 4, staying away from grasping for pleasure and avoiding pain, grabbing for gain, not wanting loss, grabbing for fame, staying away from infamy, wanting only to hear praise and rejecting blame. That if we're always swinging still between these 8 worldly concerns, we're not going to be able to engage very effectively at all. So as Geshe is saying, like the first step of engaged Buddhism is to, I believe the Tibetans have the saying, the eyes look outward and see everything but themselves. And in engaged Buddhism, we have to turn the gaze inward first to see, again, how we can really follow the Buddha Dharma purely with our own ethics totally intact. Then we bring in that mindfulness. And as Geshe said, whether it's 5 mindfulness or 14 mindfulness, doesn't matter, but the mindfulness that does check up and walks the path clean, clear. So part of the 14 mindfulness, one of the mindfulnesses is to constantly review, look back over the last week. I mean, monastics do this twice a month. We have sojung. So practices of always checking up, to make sure, how will we know if our ego is really the thing that's driving us for the name and fame and pleasure and gain? If we don't check up, we have to check up. So we need a practice to be really honest about our pure motivation. So 3 words when I first walked into a little Buddhist tiny studio here that my teacher Kensor Rinpoche was teaching in. It was before he became a Kempo. Maybe he had just finished his Geshe degree. The quote from the Buddha that said, "Believe nothing no matter who has said it, even if I myself have said it, unless it accords with your own knowing," the Buddha. And then underneath it said, "Pure intention, pure motivation, and pure dedication." And again, why do we want to walk the path? Because it's of pure benefit, not just for oneself, but first of all, to all others. We're only one, all others are countless, innumerable, but it will be of mutual benefit to be carrying a pure motivation through the practice of the Dharma. First, we do our practice with a pure heart, and then we can see how we can effectively share that joy, actually, the joy of the Dharma, share that promise of the Dharma with others through loving kindness, through thinking about where is it applicable. So the group in Hong Kong I stayed with at Plum Village has what they're calling applied Buddhism, which means meeting with community groups, helping them learn meditation, breathing in, breathing out, creating peace of mind, doing peaceful walking meditation, creating peace through movement, not even talking about Buddhism initially, but just caring about helping others who are living in Hong Kong, a big urban environment, learn how to touch peace, how to touch serenity. That really is just helping them learn how to create that kindness and calmness within their own experience. This is a very simple kind of engaged Buddhism, but very effective. And then once they actually get some benefit from just doing simple practice, breathing in, breathing out, doing the practice, they start to think more about, well, what is Buddha's teaching? What is the real essence of the teaching? So yes, we do start with oneself, but we see in a very general, very universal way of how we can apply or engage with our practice. Going into schools, something that we do here is just going into schools and even looking like this, the public schools, but never talking about Buddhism, but helping the teachers, helping the students learn how to sit quietly for 5 minutes, silently, breathing in, breathing out, creating a sense of peace in the classroom, a sense of harmony, a sense of togetherness, where they're going to engage as a teacher and as a student to create a vessel for good learning. Now, eventually they'll continue with that practice of breathing in, breathing out, learning meditation, wanting to know more about how to create peace naturally. It may lead them again to Buddha Dharma, but the first connection is just a pure motivation to wanting others to be able to live with peace and happiness, kindness, serenity, and joy. So this kind of engaged Buddhism that we talk about now in the West of the eco-dharma, I don't agree necessarily with all the focus and the panic around the climate change, because if you bring a panicked mind to anything you're doing, even if you say, I'm a bodhisattva, I'm an eco-sattva, I'm a Buddhist, well, who's that I? You've got an agenda. So first start with your own internal ecology, your internal dharmic environment that's full of the pure motivation, full of your practice, doesn't have any egoic drive behind it other than wanting to create harmony, wanting to create opportunities to engage that are of benefit to the greatest good, but not to get money out of that, not to make a name out of that, not to have the greatest, newest concept on the internet out of that, not at all. That's not a pure motivation. Yes, you can do and should do all the things that are in harmony with the Buddha's teachings, that are nonviolent, that create a balance in the world, that bring this intention of reducing harm through consumption, through habits. We can find many great practices to just personally engage with our own practice and make these lifestyle changes one by one with that pure motivation. And as Geshe said, when we're actually meeting in groups, like with INEB, I'm part of INEB, of the International Network of Engaged Buddhists. When we have retreats a few years ago in Taiwan, INEB decided as a group, this year we want only female monastics for the first time to lead our retreats, because they haven't had that opportunity before. And so it was a collective agreement, and everybody rejoiced. Everyone agreed that this would be beneficial, and to choose someone from the Theravadan, someone from the Mahayana, kind of Zen Mahayana, and then someone from the Vajradhara Tibetan background. And I was blessed to go because they really had requested Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo to go, and she couldn't go, and then she requested me to go in her place. And what a wonderful opportunity to just be seeing how this kind of engaged Buddhism, how masters also give their disciples different opportunities to serve without any kind of egoic attachment. And actually, I felt very humbled and really, felt like I was there to learn more from INEB and from the way this community's working within itself to create new opportunities, new vision, to create social change, to create change even within the Dharma Sangha community by doing it very collectively, harmoniously, not with arguing and not with the nuns or the bhikkhunis saying, you know, it's not fair, you never give us a space, we're not treated equally. No, just by being able to show up when there's an invitation to fill that space with a genuine motivation, a pure motivation, and then to recognize there's no one there that needs a gender praise. There's no one there that needs to have their tradition be the best tradition. That's all kind of an egoic clinging, so that we really show up purely, working with everyone who's there harmoniously, and coming away from all the labels of competition and the egoic drive to just really create the highest happiness, the greatest good. And again, this is what I really see that Thich Nhat Hanh did so beautifully in creating his Sangha communities, in his walk, in his writings. And I want to mention also in his beautiful artwork. So some of the things we did when I stayed with the Bhikkhunis in Plum Village was, one was just doing his beautiful calligraphy, learning his style, and then inviting me to share with her and doing some beautiful just brush strokes in silence together, sometimes laughing sweetly, like something we thought was a mistake, and then it kind of looked okay, and being playful about it, but being serious about our concentration, but playful and joyful in our hearts. And so, you know, engaged Buddhism could look very simply like a few years later, staying with people in New Zealand, and one of the lay people there was learning calligraphy herself. And she said, oh, Tenzin Dasel, come and please, you make one calligraphy for me. And I said, oh, I really haven't done it for some years, but I enjoy it. So if I can play with it a little bit as a meditation, then I engaged with it, you see? And then she said, please, I really request, you know, just make something for me. And I thought, I'm not really an artist, I can't do this. But the only thing that came to mind was to just draw a heart, you know, in this Thich Nhat Hanh style with the brush and ink. And then in the middle of it, just write the word today. And she loved it. And the basic thing that was the message was just love today. That's the best way to engage in Buddhism. Become that love, become that light, become that awakened presence that's there for everyone to share that with, using your wisdom, using your compassion in very simple, humble ways. And if we do this, each of us well, we will transform this entire planet that way. I agree. This is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when Venerable Master Thich Nhat Hanh passed away, signed his letter of regret, of hearing the news, and of his wish, saying the best way we can honor Master Thich Nhat Hanh's legacy is by carrying that torch, as Geshe said, carrying that torch of peace further in the world, becoming that light ourselves, being that presence of loving kindness just today, and making that day every day.